Right. Good evening to everyone, and welcome again to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over the world. And as you know, I like to do my weekly segment on a Monday, where we talk about and go through some of the fan comments, those subscribers and fans who have diligently and religiously put comments on the channel. I've got a special guest in James Rowe, and James is going to be helping me go through the Europa League Cup draw. So good evening, James. How are you?
Very well, Alex. Thanks for having me on again, and delighted to be back.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm sure all the subscribers and the viewers will be happy to see your face and listen to your knowledge of European football down to a nut. So I thought what we'll go through the comments, and I think maybe James might give us his opinions on some of the comments. So the first comment here, I believe, is again from Aranav Ghosh, who again is a regular viewer on the channel. So Aranav, if you're watching again, thank you very much. And you say, he said, had anxiously sat down to watch the game. Now he's referring to the Europa League match when we played against Qarabag. Had anxiously sat down to watch the game, especially to watch the youngsters. It was quite disappointing at times because I thought the kids were overconfident and committed silly errors. Too much dazzling dribbles and hanging onto the ball. Okay, I understand their flamboyance and flair, but if Saka keeps missing sitters, Emery will look for other options. Willock was not looking as good as the last game. Now, I've always said that Emery needs to blood in these youngsters there. I've always said that the answer is closer to home rather than thinking about spending millions of pounds with players that maybe they're not proven in the Premiership. The price tag and the wage bill is going to weigh Arsenal down. But I thought it was a good outing for the boys against Qarabag FK there. James, what do you think about the Qarabag match?
I think the question first and foremost is a very good assessment. I think it's a very good assessment, especially. I think when you're through in the Europa League and when you get to the last rounds, you always get strange results. And there was a lot of people that thought that Arsenal would well win with Qarabag and win 3-4, 5-0. But you've got teams playing for pride. You've got teams that are not necessarily going to be in Europe again for some time. I mean, the beaten finalists from last year, Olympique Marseille, were I think they lost up on Limassol from Cyprus at home, I believe. They were in the final last year, and they had chances to go 1-0 up in that final. And now this year, in a group of Limassol, Frankfurt, and Lazio, they've been turned inside out. And it just goes to show that at European level, there are no easy games. Arsenal had their fingers burnt with Ostersund's in the second leg back in February this year. We've been drawn against Bati Borisov, who have, if I'm brutally honest, more Champions League experience than what we do in the last two seasons. And they were very unlucky not to dispose of PSV Eindhoven in the qualifying rounds. They lost 3-2 in the first leg, and then they were beaten away from home as well. They had chances to put PSV away in that first leg in Belarus, and unfortunately, they didn't take their chances. But this is a team who have won 15 domestic titles, and as I say, they've played Arsenal in the group stage. I think this last season, so we know them. They're fairly fresh, but we have to respect every opponent. You know, if you one thing looking at the Europa League draw, Alex, there are some really big teams that are going to go out at the last 32 stage. When you have Benfica against Galatasaray, arguably the two biggest countries of the two biggest clubs of those countries. You've got Fenerbahce against Zenit St. Petersburg. So that's the first thing that struck me with the draw. There are chances for Arsenal. There's no easy run. We were very, very unlucky last season to reach the semi-final, and I think how it went down in Madrid really stuck with me because I wanted them to give their all. I didn't mind them if they were going to lose 2-3-0, but when that goal from Diego Costa went in, it was kind of deflated. but we've got an excellent opportunity to win our first European trophy for 25 years. And I know people say, "Oh, it's not the Champions League, oh, Thursday nights," but you know yourself, we are both old enough to know and the special feeling that it was when Arsenal won the Cup Winners' Cup in 1994, winning it in a way we did, beating who we did, and also the run to the final, beating Odense and Standard Liège. We're lucky enough to remember that, and it's fantastic memories. We've got a fair few generations now that have never seen Arsenal win a European trophy. And for them, this is a fantastic for all of us, but specifically for the younger generation, it's very important. My first thoughts are there'll be a lot of good teams going out in the last 32. We've got to remain as professional as we can, and then hopefully we can look forward to a place in the last 16.
Yeah. I'm going to go through some more fan comments, but I want to ask you a question, James. Do you think we are best prepared to progress further in the Europa League Cup? And do you think Unai Emery is the right coach for Arsenal at this point in time?
I fully agree. I mean, we're fortunate with this competition to have a manager that's won it 3 times in a row. Yes, you could argue with the penalty series against Benfica, they were a little bit lucky, but his tactical aptitude to dispose of Liverpool, and I think he wants to win it as well. I don't think it's for him an opportunity to fall by the wayside, and I think he respects the competition. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the names in that last 32, the likes of Zenit St. Petersburg, Benfica, Valencia, Inter Milan, Napoli, Bayer Leverkusen. There are some very good teams in that last 32, and I get the impression that some people think, oh, it's not the Champions League, I'm not interested. But I can be brutally honest with you, and also with the viewers. Since Arsenal have been, I mean, I'm a fan of European football. I have been since I was a child. But since Arsenal have been in the Europa League, I have found myself putting more attention on Europa League matches and opponents than what I have Champions League. I've still been keeping an eye, as I always would with Champions League, but I've been looking at Europa League, and it's a great opportunity. And yeah, fingers crossed, all roads will lead to Baku.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's just get back into the fan comments. I know we've got a little bit off astray a little bit, but we'll get back onto the Europa League and the draw. And so we've got some more comments on the channel. And again, Aranav Ghosh, he has said defeat in question marks. Unai Emery is more than aware of that. Now he's talking about my preview of Southampton versus Arsenal, where I said we must be very wary because there are no easy games in the Premiership. But I thought because we had the 2 suspensions and a new manager at Southampton in Ralph, and James, you had to help me on the pronunciation. Ralph Hasenhüttl. Right, and I thought it might have been a cocktail for a disaster, and lo and behold, yeah, we lost 3-2. So what Aronoff is saying here is that it's going to be, it isn't going to be easy, but we are not letting the unbeaten run end at Southampton of all places. And unfortunately, what happened? The unbeaten run did come to an end at Southampton. James, the sad thing for me is the fan base. Twitter had gone or is still going into a meltdown. It's only the 3rd defeat of the season, and we've been on a fantastic run of 22 games unbeaten in all competitions. Yeah, we still lie in 5th place, which goes to show that the strength of the teams in the top 4 positions. So we have to be level-headed. It's a new manager. We're in transition. He will need transfer windows to bring in and improve the squad. But with all things taken into account, the team and Unai Emery have done a fantastic job. They've done a really good job.
I fully agree. My prediction for Southampton was I thought it was going to be a draw. I think with the new manager bouncing up, I would also like to commend Southampton. It's an extremely shrewd signing. If you look at some of the football that Leipzig were playing, specifically in Europe, and to finish second to Bayern Munich. Hasenhüttl knows what he's doing, and they can be very excited about that appointment. I just think that we all good things come to an end at some time. But I think you make a great point about the people going into meltdown and the fans and everything. I mean, we've both been supporting the club for years and years and years. Can you imagine what would have happened with the reaction to Arsenal sitting 12th in the league, and what happened in '96? Can you imagine what the reaction would have been to getting knocked out by Wrexham in the FA Cup as reigning league champions? You know, and to have a team go away to play Bradford that has a collective accumulative caps of 309, and they were well beaten and then beaten on penalties by Bradford. You know, you got to take the rough with the smooth, and all good things have to come to an end sometime. But you've got to look at the bigger picture. There are some clubs that have not won silverware for years. We have been fortunate to have won our last piece of silverware in 2017. You know, that's what, a year and a half ago we last won our last piece of silverware. Some clubs have had to wait for years. So we've got a new manager who's fully determined. I think we have to keep things into perspective. And bear in mind as well, there's going to be some strange results over Christmas. And that's all part and parcel of football. So naturally, everyone's got a right to their own opinion. I will always respect the opinion of every Gooner, Alex. But I think some people, I don't think they think completely before they tweet. I think they're looking for maybe the retweet, or they're looking to be the first one to have said something. But it's not always he who shouts the loudest gets heard. You know, if you can be quiet and go about your business. But, you know, we've got a huge game on Wednesday against Spurs. Fingers crossed we'll reach the semi-final of the League Cup. And bearing in mind, we've only won the League Cup for twice in our history, in 1987 and 1993. Everybody remembers the disappointments of 2007 and 11 and 2018. I think the most feasible trophy for Emery to win this season is the League Cup. And I will certainly be celebrating it if we do win it. Because, it'll be the first time since 1993 we won it. I mean, it remains the first trophy I ever saw Arsenal win back in '93. And, I think if we can win that League Cup, that sets us up to hopefully have a real good crack at the Europa League and FA Cup, and then build a base to push on for next season too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through all these other fan comments, because in the chat there are already people saying that they want to know what is the Europa League Cup draw. There's someone, again, excuse me for the pronunciation of your name, Krayakos K. Smart Koroma. And he says he's from Sierra Leone. He says that he wants to know what is the draw for Arsenal. Please, Alex and James. So give us just a few more minutes. We're going to go through just some more fan comments, and then we'll get straight into the Europa League Cup draw. All right. And yeah, just in response to that comment, I've got someone called O Slice X. And he says, finally, somebody said it. There are no easy games in the Premier League. Respect the opposition regardless of the name. 3 points is 3 points, regardless of which team you play. Great video, mate. Okay, thank you for that. And the last one before we go in to the Europa League. Right, this will be the last one. I've got Paul Smith here. Paul Smith is another regular who puts comments on the channel. And he says, Oba missed a lot of chances every game. He's done great, but he misses a lot. And Koscielny today was poor. Listen, I've said all I wanted to say about the match yesterday against Southampton. Look, guys, and the fan base, please just keep. Now it calls for calm heads.
Yeah.
Just look at the sum total. We've done great with the players that we've had, and it's a new season with a new manager. He needs time.
Absolutely.
And Pep Guardiola, when he came in, he didn't win the league, did he? So
no, he didn't win the league in his first season. Jurgen Klopp is still I think Klopp has put himself under tremendous pressure. I remember watching Jurgen Klopp's unveiling, and I remember him stating that by the end of his 3-season deal, that he expects to have won at least one title. I don't know if he was specifically meaning title as in Premiership, or maybe even just title in terms of a league or a cup. But there's tremendous pressure on those shoulders to win something for Liverpool this season. And as we know, a season is a very, very long time. We just have to stick with what we're doing, embrace it. This, as I said at the start of the season, Alex, this season is new for all of us. There are some Arsenal fans in this season that are seeing only their second ever Arsenal manager. There's some that only knew Arsene Wenger, whereas myself, George Graham, even the caretaker of Stuart Houston, and also Bruce Rioch, that you got to take the rough with the smooth. It's a huge journey, but the most important thing is to be proud of the cannon on your chest. And we're in a good position. I've stated before, Alex, I'm quietly confident that Emery will win a trophy in his first season, and I think it will be the League Cup. I sincerely hope it's the Europa League.
Yeah, I second that as well. I hope it is Europa League, but to be honest, James, I will take any kind of silverware this season.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, fully agree.
Right. So we're going to get into the Europa League Cup draw, and do you want to tell the viewers, James, who we're going to be facing, or shall I break the breaking news to them? You go. You
Uh,
go for it. You go for it,
okay.
James.
We will be facing FC Bati Borisov from Belarus, who
Mm.
have won their domestic league 15 times, and who we faced in last season's Europa League group stage. They were in the Champions League qualifiers this season, where they were knocked out by PSV, were very unlucky in the home match. If we're honest, they've got more Champions League football experience than what we have in the last 2 seasons. And we've got to respect them. Second leg's at home. We've got to be professional. I know some people will get carried away thinking we're into the last 16, but just my advice would be, Alex, if you take a look at the results of the Europa League since qualifying, there have been many, 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 many surprises. And if you look at the group stage, AC Milan are out, Leipzig are out. And if you look at the draw for the last 32, there are some very big teams going out. We have Benfica against Galatasaray, arguably the two biggest clubs of those specific countries facing one another. That was the Champions League match a couple of seasons ago. Zenit St. Petersburg against Fenerbahce, also a very, very big one. Sevilla against Lazio. Now that is a mouth-watering
That
tie.
that'd be a great tie.
One of them is going home. And there's some smaller ties as well. For example, Sporting Lisbon Villarreal. I think that will be a good tie. Very intrigued about Rennes against Betis, because I think Betis are going to surprise, and I think they're going to reach the latter stages of this competition where they may well face Arsenal. And I would be really intrigued to hear people's opinion, because they can play some swashbuckling football at times, and it's going to be a real test. It's going to be a real fight to the end. But as I said before, you've got the likes of Valencia, Napoli, Benfica, Galatasaray, Arsenal, Lazio, Sevilla. They're all vying to win this competition. We've got a tremendous opportunity to win our first European trophy in 25 years. I want us to see it through to the end, and we'll
Yeah.
just have to take it round by round.
But taking out the how can I say? Well, of course, we're going to be supporting Arsenal against Bate. But which do you think is going to be the pick of the ties there? Which game do you think? Do you think Lazio versus Sevilla is going to be the pick
Yeah.
of the ties?
Yeah, I
Or-
think so. I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, I'm partial to Benfica, but I watched them play against Ajax here in Amsterdam back in October, and they were extremely conservative. You associate Benfica with swashbuckling, fantastic attacking football, but under their current manager, especially in Europe, you don't see that. I think Lazio, with how dangerous they can be, and Sevilla as well. Also, Eintracht Frankfurt, they topped a group containing Lazio and Marseille. Their German Cup winners last season. They play away to Shakhtar Donetsk. So there's going to be some very, very interesting ties, and we've also got to enjoy it. Last season I got the impression that not many Arsenal fans enjoyed the Europa League. I loved it. You know, I was so disappointed when we got knocked out in the semi-final, and I still went to Lyon for the final. I mean, I know a lot of Arsenal fans gave up their ticket. How often do you get to experience a European Europa League final? So it was a tremendous experience. But yeah, I was at the matches for Wolfsburg Bratislava and Sporting Lisbon at home in the group phase. And then I'm hoping to go to Bati Borisov as well. And I'll keep my eyes on the home legs for fingers crossed future rounds. And then it'd be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. So just read a couple of comments in the chat here. We've got one here from Ryan. Hi, Ryan. Welcome to and he's saying here, I was just disappointed with the performance as a whole. Koscielny lack of defensive nous. Actually, on all 3 goals. Yeah, Ryan. You know, we've said it before. You know, really. You know, there were no easy matches in the Premiership, and it will be a wake-up call for the whole team. And again, the fan base just needs to keep calm, cool, and collective. That's all it is. The third game of the season.
Yeah. Fully agree. You know, a season ends in May. We're only just in the middle of December. I think with Koscielny, I think his injury can't be underestimated because an Achilles injury, in terms of movement, anticipation, timing, the weight that he's putting on his foot and going into 50-50 challenges, it's got to wear you down slowly and surely, I think. And he wasn't picked for the French national team squad. Okay, he was injured. I know he had teammates trying to cheer him up and make him sure he's okay. But I also remember his Euro 2016 final, Alex, where Eder, who scored the Portuguese winning goal, swatted him away like a fly. And Koscielny's well built. You can't necessarily swat him away. And Eder seemed to kind of move his arm, and it was as if Koscielny flew from one area of the pitch to the other. And you know, he's been a great servant, but you know, the end is nigh now. I don't think people should put too much emphasis on his return being coincidental in a defeat. But I really hope now that Arsenal look to identify a top quality centre half. And I know people like to band names about, but as I say, from someone who interviews professional players and managers on a regular basis, you're dealing with players that have got commitments in terms of families, children that are at school, homes they live in, cities they like to live in. It's not quite simply a case of, do you want to sign for Arsenal? Yes, please. It's not always as simple as that. So I'm really, really intrigued as to who Arsenal target. I stated a long time ago, Alex, I don't expect too much. I don't expect too much movement in January because Emery's still assessing his squad. I think we'll see more in the summer, but I think we'll see a ruthless Arsenal in the summer. I think we'll be seeing deals done quite quickly, and I think we'll be seeing ins and outs, which can only be a good thing. But we're in a good position, and yeah, fingers crossed for a tasty North London derby on Wednesday night.
Yeah, but actually, just I don't want to labour the point too much, but I did see Emery's post match conference, and actually he did say, because I think he was asked a question about improving the squad, and I think he did say that they're not going to be doing any business at all in the January window, and if the case might be that he'll play youth players, then he'll play the youth players. So I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I know people like to think, oh, buying this and buying that, but you have to put yourself in that place. You imagine having a job, doing the job to your best of your ability, and your firm hiring someone else to do your job. How would that make you feel? And I just think as well that I think people think that buying is far, far too easy. You've got bids going in, you've got bids being accepted, you've got terms and conditions, you've got length of contract. There's lots of things to be got over the line. And I made a good point to Ryan yesterday on the Twitter. Arsenal bought Gabriel Paulista in the January window. Arsenal spent 15 million euros on him. 15 million euros is not pocket money. It's an awful lot of money. Arsenal played him as a bit part player. He was maligned in some quarters. and then he was sold at a loss to Valencia at a loss of €5 million. It seems to have gone down the drain. And you know, I I always thought Gabriel was quite unlucky, to be honest. But if you look at
So
him
did
now
I.
playing in a competent Valencia setup, I mean he had aerial presence, which I don't think any of our centre halves actually have, whereas
Mm.
Gabriel had that. And I just think that we've got to trust Emery. I mean, maybe it's a little bit too ambitious of me, but I believe Diego Godin is out of contract in the summer. If he wants a challenge, then a challenge of him marshalling our defence, because I
Yeah.
think if we had him, I'm not saying he's the cure for everything, but I think if he was to come to our defence, I think within 10, 15 games, you'd see a completely different way of defending. So, but maybe
Right.
that's a little bit pie in the sky, maybe.
It could be, but nothing is impossible. So back
No.
into the chat again. We've got Brian77. He says, "Yeah, we drew Batty Borisov. Okay, yes." And again, Goroma says, "Also cannon fodder. Please, if we can go in Usmani Dembele and Nicolas Pepe, and
Mhm.
also bring in Pablo or Santi Cazorla. He's still good, and two centre backs. Then Arsenal will be in there." Pace. Right. Okay. I don't think Santi Cazorla will be coming back anytime soon. I think,
No,
yeah,
no.
he's
I
done.
think very happy at BDAL.
Yeah.
If I can just make a point about Dembele, um, his former manager Peter Bos, who managed here at Ajax, he was on a Dutch football show a couple of months ago, and he was talking about his time at Borussia Dortmund, and he wasn't criticizing Dembele, but he gave the example of he's gone into training and Usman Dembele is not there. And Peter Boss's first thought was, is he okay? He's not injured. He's not in any bad way. And turning up late for training. I mean, I heard that Barcelona have got a clause now where he can't turn his telephone off, just so that they know exactly where he is all the time. These characteristics, they all add up. And yeah, I've made no bones about the fact I would love us to sign Tovan. I think people are making far too much of, oh, he didn't play well at Newcastle. But look, since his return to Marseille, he's been on absolute tremendous form. I mean, this season he scored 11 goals. He's a real talisman for Marseille. And I believe if we was to get Tovan, the crosses that he could provide for Lacazette and Aubameyang would be, I think that would be served up on a plate to them. I don't think he'd cost an awful lot of money, and I think he's only 25 years old. So I would love it to sign Tovan. As regards to Sarr, I watched him for the Ivory Coast in the World Cup a couple of times. He looks quite good, but you know we've got to trust the backroom staff and Emery in terms of identifying players and give them a chance, and be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, just going off, not off track. No. An ex-Arsenal player plays from Batty Borisov.
Yeah,
Alexander
Alexander
Hebb.
Pep. Yeah,
Yeah,
be
at the age
interesting.
of 37, still going strong. Wow.
Indeed, I think he'll get a good reception.
He will.
I think he regrets leaving Arsenal. I mean, I know when he signed, he was on tremendous form for Stuttgart. I think Arsenal signed him from Stuttgart. Things can go very quickly in a career, and you know, it didn't go the way he wanted, but you know, he tried. I think he'll get a very good reception, and we just have to be as professional as possible. I mean, I can understand that people are wanting to play the likes of Benfica and Valencia and Sevilla and Lazio. They want to play those types of games, but you got to walk before you can run. And you know those gap matches are going to be real tests. I'm not saying that Barty Borisov will not be a test. It will be a test, but we've got to be as professional as possible. I mean, I don't want Arsenal playing the likes of Betis and Lazio not being ready. And with the greatest respect, to face a Lazio, a Betis, a Napoli, or an Inter with youth players, that's not the ideal preparation. So we've got to take it round by round. We've got a tremendous opportunity to win our first European trophy in 25 years. We must take it. or at least get to the final and go one better than last year. I can understand the frustration of Arsenal fans saying, "Oh, it's not the Champions League." But let me tell you this, Alex. People saying it's not the Champions League, I'm not interested. You look at the difference between the Champions League and the Europa League, not so much in terms of the size of the clubs, but the way the Champions League teams play. I mean, you've only got to look at the Champions League draw today. Atletico against Juventus, one of those are going out. You've got Lyon, who did very, very well. They'll give Barcelona a tough test. Paris Saint-Germain are playing Manchester United. If we can't deal with the Europa League teams, then we can't expect to go hell for leather in the Champions League. You've got one prepares you for the other. And yes, confidence is a very important thing. I'm confident that Arsenal would, if they get back in the Champions League, would get through to the last 16. But what I'm saying is that European football moves so quickly that you can't just think, oh, I'm not interested in the Europa League. Champions League is where it's at. But when you get back into the Champions League after a 2-year absence, an awful lot has changed in terms of pace and opponents, and we're going to have to deal with that as well.
Okay, and just getting back into the chat, there's just a couple more comments here. One from, again, Ryan77. Thanks for putting the comments on here in the chat. He says, we should let Koscielny go and bring in a centre-half. It's the best for both parties. And then Koroma also says, he says, or else, believe me, without Arsenal, I will never, ever support any other team in the world. Well, okay.
Made a sensible choice then.
Yeah. Oh dear. I mean, yeah. Again, I don't want to labour the point about Koscielny. We've already spoken about Koscielny. My thoughts. I've done the pre-match and the post-match review. So yeah, I'm not going to labour the point. So we played Batty Borisov last season, didn't we? And we beat them over 2 legs. I think it was like a 10-2 aggregate score, wasn't it? So,
yes, 6-0 at home and 4-2 in Belarus.
Yeah.
But I think it's a different side. A lot changes in football, especially European football. I think we can be confident of winning both legs, but we've got to remain as professional as possible. I mean, we're not facing a Villarreal. We're not facing a Napoli. We're not facing a Bayer Leverkusen. So we're in a decent position. But I've often stated, Alex, I know people try to plan and plot their way through European competition. It doesn't work like that. I mean, history will tell you can go right the way back into the history books. When you get to the latter stages of a competition, there will always be one club in the semi-finals that nobody expected. Like, for example, Salzburg last year almost reached the final of the Europa League. Ajax the year before, in 2016, they lost to Manchester United. Nobody expected Ajax to reach the final. Espanyol many years ago, Champions League with FC Porto. People trying to negate a way through, it doesn't work like that. And if you try to advocate that, you'll get your fingers burnt somewhere along the line.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple more comments before we wrap up this segment of fan comments and Europa League Cup draw mashup. This comes from Ruben Abajo. He says, the young boy who played the Europa game on Thursday is better than Ozil. If he was fielded against Southampton, we would win that game yesterday. Is he talking about... Who's he talking about? Is he talking about...
Baka, the number 87.
Yeah, is he talking about him? I'm not sure. Is he talking about
possibly? But it's a big difference between Europa League and Premier League. I mean, you mentioned about Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe has been tremendous. I mean, I watched him make his debut against in European football and for Arsenal against Vodska Poltava, and he didn't look out of place at Sporting Lisbon at home neither. He looked as if he could handle himself. But it's a big difference between Europa League and Premier League, specifically the pace. And you got to be eased in. I think the lineup for Wednesday is going to be very interesting. We've got to put out our best side, because if we win, we're into the semi-final, which is a 2-legged affair. and we could reach another final. Emery's first final as an Arsenal manager, so that would be great. So yeah, all eyes on Wednesday, I believe.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap up this segment of fan comments with the Europa League Cup draw mashup. And guys, whoever came into the chat, thanks for taking the time. If you're new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe. If you want, you're not obligated, and press the like button as well. I think we've got just one more comment that's just come through. Okay, Ruben says it's the player who's wearing number 87. I need to double check back. It probably was
It was, I believe it was Baka, was it Baka? I was just going to take a look.
Yeah.
Moment.
I just can't remember now.
One moment.
Number 87 was. Who was the number 87? What you've got me on that.
Hang on one moment. Right. Bukayo Saka.
That's right, you're right. Okay. You know, I think as James said, you know what, to make that step up into the Premiership, even more so in the Europa League, is a big step up. So
absolutely.
You know, as much as I would love, you know, the player to come through and like hit the ground running, it doesn't always happen that way. It doesn't always happen that way.
No, you need to have be an extraordinary talent, or you need to be eased in. I mean, like for example, the captain of Ajax here in Amsterdam, Matthijs de Ligt, is currently won the young golden ball for young players, and he's captain of Ajax at the age of 19. They won 8-0 yesterday at home to the Graafschap. I was at the match, and it was the biggest win I've ever seen. Also, if I can give a quick plug, Alex,
sure, go for it.
Viewers can also check out my Twitter handle at James Rowe NL, and they can have a read of my exclusive interviews for World Football Index. Coming up soon will be my interview with former Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain striker David Ngo. So looking forward to see how well that's received.
Yeah, and actually, I want to tell him that I'll make sure I leave the link for James Rowe and his channel Twitter handle in the comments box below. And the last comment we're going to go through, and then we're going to wrap it up, is again from Karoma. He says, "Thank you very much, Cannon Fodder." Oh, right. Thank you very much, Cannon Fodder. I do really appreciate, and I like this kind of discussion for Arsenal. May God continue to bless you. You are really doing well. Arsenal fans. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. This year has actually gone really fast because we started the channel in February, I believe, February this year, and the idea wasn't actually to do this kind of platform. We were thinking of doing a podcast or videos around Arsenal in Latin America. So if it were not for the subscribers, you would have been seeing me speaking Spanish, or as my wife says, Spanglish. But if it wasn't for you guys, there would be no Cannon Fodder TV. If there was no Cannon Fodder TV, you wouldn't be seeing and listening to James Rowe NL out there. But James, I want to say an absolute big thank you to you again.
More than welcome, anytime.
It's always been a pleasure to have you come on to the podcast and the live streams and what have you there. And like my subscribers, they absolutely love you, James. They absolutely love you.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you very much. It's one of the regular podcasts I enjoy the most, and especially to combine it with my love of European football as well. It's nice to nice to let the viewers know about little small statistics, and obviously when you interview professional players and managers as well. So it's a real interesting thing I like to do, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the new year.
Brilliant. So as you know, this is probably the penultimate fan comments that I will do on Cannon Fodder, because it's come to Christmas and the New Year. It's come so quick. And those of you who are watching, remember to tune in this Friday where we do the feature-length version of Easy Talk. Unfortunately, James is not going to be there. He has other commitments.
Unfortunately, I have other commitments, but I promise I'll be back in the new year, and I'm sure that especially with the Europa League commitments that Arsenal have, I'd like to join you more. Well, I'll be joining you quite regularly next year anyway, but specifically in terms of Europa League progression, I'll be happy to join in on a regular basis.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, on that note, you have been watching Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over the world in association with James Rowe NL out there in the Netherlands.
Hello. Bye bye, everybody.